Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the January Tarot Forecast. This is a tarot forecast for all the signs. That is going to start with Aries and then end with Pisces, because that's how the zodiac goes. Um, yeah, so welcome. Grab your favorite beverage, relax. I'm going to be talking for a while. I'm going to be talking for a while. You're going to be here for a while. It's all good. You have plenty of time. This is the perfect place. Or what is it actually? So, the one thing I'm all about positive affirmations and intuitive affirmations, but I find it easier and then writing a new song and recording it yourself with, positive affirmation in it is to try to find songs that already have positive affirmations within them. So I've been listening to, I don't know the name of the band or the song. Um, Obviously not enough. This Must Be the Place by the Talking Heads, I want to say. The Talking Heads. They also have that song, Psycho Killer, and other songs. But specifically, This Must Be the Place by, I believe, the Talking Heads. And a lot of olden timey music. Like, I think I have this one TikTok video talking about like blackface and Al Jolson and things like that. And one of the things about like black culture and the black diaspora is that it's like often stolen. You know what I mean? So, you'll you know, you know, most likely you'll go into some, real hot couples swinging pad in Brooklyn and they have a bunch of like African mask and giraffes and zebras and things like that. But, if you were to go to some black person's house and you see that, you're like, oh, they're like Afrocentric, they're obsessed with being African, or it's tacky, or whatever the case may be, which is all just like a cultural appropriation. So I say that to say that, like, if somebody's like, oh, why don't you sing black people music or music that's intended for black people, or why don't you act more black, or whatever that may be, it's that, like, the typical black accent, like saying things like, let me ask you a question, actually stems from English, Scottish accents. And, do your own research. I'm not here to be Marcus Garvey or like whoever is like super woke and knowledgeable in black culture right now, but that's the message that's coming to me right now. So it's like, if you want to find your music, or if you feel like your musical summoning powers haven't been working because you've been listening to 50 Cent or Young Dolph or something, you might have to listen to like Rudy Valley or Elvis Presley, because those are our songs. So if it's like commonly known that Elvis Presley would steal music from black musicians, or he stole his music from black musicians, which back in those days, everybody sort of had to steal music because there weren't beat machines and samples. So if he has like a horn blaring in one of his songs, like that's a person. That's a person who like most likely did not get paid and was not successful in their career as a trumpet player, or whatever the case, trumpet or drums or guitar or whatever the case may be. So actually, the idea of having an artist like Taylor Swift, who just goes out there, writes her own music, plays an instrument, doesn't have to play every instrument, definitely has a beat machine and synthesizers, whatever, is a little bit more like earnest and beautiful, I think. So when you see those like buskers out on the street with their little guitar or pan flute or whatever it is that they're playing, it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very shamanic thing. So olden timey songs have positive affirmation in them. They belong to black people, even if it's being sung by a white person. Don't let that scare you away for whatever reason. And get connected with your space and your culture. That's not just a message for Aries, that's a collective all signs message that just came to me right now. Because the music that you're listening to probably has a lot of negative affirmation in it, probably makes you feel bad about yourself. And a lot of rap music, because, it's like a flexor, braggadocious type of culture, they do say things intentionally to make you feel bad about yourself. The only thing I can really think of, because I don't really listen to too much rap, is like Doja Cat, and she's like, something something playing Sims 4, never been poor, or whatever, whatever. Which, if that's your case, you might find that empowering. If that's not your case, you're like, why is Doja Cat mocking me? Like why is this happening? Or the 50 Cent song like Window Shopper, you might have taken a lot of solace in going to Rodeo Drive or nice neighborhoods and just looking at beautiful houses, or going to Brooks Brothers to look at suits that you probably can't afford, just to like see them and look at them, and then you listen to the song Window Shopper by 50 Cent and it makes you feel miserable and unaccomplished. So change up the music, and that's the end of the video. Goodbye. You can honestly like just tune out now. Just kidding. Okay, so let's get into the specifics of the 12 zodiac signs, and we're looking at Aries. So hello Aries, we have the Four of Swords reversed. Um, I mean, these videos get a couple of views every now and again. If you guys want to know each card, like I was thinking about putting it on the screen, not my cards, but like just the Aries, Four of Swords reverse, Taurus, Four of Pentacles reverse. I might do that. Just, I don't know if the viewers at home want if you have your own cards at home, you can look at them on your screen. And the funny thing is too, I mean, I guess this has to do with Aries, but like on Reddit, I was doing a reading. I somewhat like when another reader really wants a reading, love to do it. Love to do a reading for someone who isn't skeptical or paranoid or whatever that is. But I did a reading for this guy on Reddit, and he was like, "Oh, like how do you do your readings?" And I was like, "With tarot cards, because it's a tarot card reading." Like sometimes people they're trying to be funny or jerks or assholes or whatever, but I'm like, literally, I do not know how to respond to this question without being sarcastic. Like, I'm offering tarot readings. How else would I do my reading? And he was like, "Oh, well, you didn't mention any cards." And I'm like, "Well, because the cards have meanings, and you as a reader should know." Like, there's times when I'm watching, like, I watch this guy, Minnow Pond, on YouTube, and I guess he has like a TikTok now too. And he'll say things like, "Oh, I see that you're going from rough waters to calm waters," and I'm like, "Oh, he's talking about the Six of Swords." Um, you're heading towards a catastrophe and upheaval. Oh, he's talking about the Tower. Like I know you need to tap into your magic. Oh, he's talking about the Magician. I know exactly what card he's talking about because of the like interpretation. And I know that a lot of people, and maybe this is why this is coming up in the Aries reading because you guys are babies. Um, it's like, you might have been studying something for a year or 6 months, and you think that you're an expert, and then you talk to somebody who's been doing it for 6 years, or you start doing whatever it is that you're doing for 6 years, and they're like, "Man, in my first year, I really was so arrogant and didn't know caca about what I was talking about." And that's just a part of growing up. You know what I mean? Like a big part of me and Taro Bay is the little chibi cartoon logo, because when I was a little kid, I wanted to be like an animation slave with Akira Toriyama actually. And then computers came out and animation came along, and just it's CGI animation, and that never came to fruition. But also it's like, I was manifesting something horrible and tedious that I didn't actually want to do. Which also reminds me of another story about the we're never gonna get into the cards. Um, that reminds me about the television show or cartoon show Madeline, where uh, I used to think that that show was so boss because they used to pray like in the intro to the show. They were like, "Thank you for our daily bread" or whatever. I was like, I don't know, prayer is so like I'm a Pisces, like prayer is so tough to me. I was like, "Oh, this show is about God. Love this." But I think it like makes children. I mean, parents will eventually pass away eventually. But I think it actually scares little children. And there's so many like little children programs about like orphans, like Harry Potter and Madeline, Oliver Twist, whatever. It's like horror for children. But also, like not to be like, don't let your kids watch Madeline or read Eloise or the Velveteen Rabbit because they're gonna get sick and they have to burn all their toys. Um, but I would try to keep like if I had a kid, or if I had custody of my kid, um, I would try to keep all that type of like negative media away from her. And like especially things like Law and Order, because she's already been through a lot of violence, and uh, I know that people, like, you would think, right? You would think, like, if a little girl's father was murdered or something right in front of her face, that people would be very sympathetic and kind to her. But from what I know of what happened to my grandmother, what happened to my daughter, um, my problem child stepdaughter, or I don't know what you call it, like adopted daughter or whatever. She still is my daughter, and like I don't care. But people are mean, like when you're going through grief, and they kind of see it as like a weak moment where they can kind of take you down. So Aries, Four of Swords reversed, the Four of Swords, it talks about rest and meditation, but I think that it's kind of undeniably a like a funeral. So there could be like your father maybe in need of a funeral or in need of help planning a funeral. Um, an Aries might be like needing company to go to a funeral. Might have difficulty praying or mourning. May find it difficult to take themselves as serious enough to pray. And the funny thing is that, I'll be like scratching my brain doing tarot card readings about how to find love, how to find money, how to be at peace, to be calm, how to let go of resentment, and all these like really deep questions. And the answer typically tends to be like meditate, pray, focus your mind, manifest, do the work. And I think like a lot of times people, when it comes to manifestation, they think that it's only in terms of like Lamborghinis and Mercedes Benz, right? Which I think that a lot of manifestors or spellcasters use that as like advertisement and enticement. It's like, I know you're owned by the devil. I know that you won't respect me unless I'm driving around in a Chrysler 300 and I have a face full of makeup. So I'm gonna do all that. I'm gonna get the Urban Decay palette and the Anastasia Beverly Hills to show you that I'm capable of accomplishing those things with magic. But once you tap into this magic, especially when you're working with me, when you're working with Micah, like, the deity, God, the universe, whatever, under the tenets of Micah, only really ask you to do three things. So the prophet Micah says that God is only asking for us to, to live justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. And what that means, or what that means to me, is to be fair to people, and that's also to know that life is fair. So if someone screws you over, you don't have to make your whole life about getting revenge against them. To love mercy. So loving mercy, to me, means that you you like to see people not necessarily get away with things, but you like to watch people receive mercy. So, like, I don't know if this is like Bible times and you're about to watch someone get stoned or beheaded or some horrible stuff, and you see that the executioner changes their mind, or, someone's sitting in the electric chair and they get the call from the governor, at the 11th hour, and they're free to go and they're saved and they've been spared. You're supposed to love that. Like, that's supposed to bring you joy. But in my own meditations and spiritual revelations, it has been saying to me that it is your job to love mercy, but it is not your job to show it. It's your job to do your job. So, if you're a animal control person and there's like a rabid raccoon attacking your daughter, it would be so great to show that raccoon mercy and put it into a humane trap and to like release it back into the woods so that it can go live its happy, snappy life. But, if you're like a restaurateur and you got a mouse problem, you can't have a bunch of humane mouse traps lined around your um, hotel or your restaurant, because now you got living rodents in there. So it's much better to put a gigantic sticky trap by the door for a couple of days just to like diminish their population. There's also I saw on Amazon there are these like I got them a couple times. I guess they worked. They definitely work for like flies and insects and things like that. No, they worked. They definitely worked. I would definitely say that they worked. So there's like that's humane. It's like ultrasonic, but then also I don't know if it was psychosomatic or whatever, but I also started to feel a little bit sick from being inside the house around those um I guess they're like UV pest control things. So I guess if you have some like, you spraying for bugs or um trying to get rid of pests, try to look at the different options. So that was a lot. That was a lot of different things. Really didn't have to do with the four of swords per se, but I do channeled messages too. So back to that guy on Reddit asking like if I actually used tarot cards to do my readings. The answer is hell yes, because I'm not that creative. Or I guess I am, but I also the interpretations or the messages that come through the tarot for me are clairvoyant and intuitive. Because you'll get a tarot book and it tells you what this means and what that means and what these combinations are, but they don't tell you that like the Queen of Wands name is Carolyn, or the Queen of Cups name is Diana, and the Queen of Swords is like a woman named Tracy, and she needs to shave or something. Like those that only comes from doing the cards for a very long time, listening to them. Don't tell your therapist that you're listening to your cards because they'll label you as a schizophrenic. But that's I guess some clarity about where everything is coming from and where everything is going. But let's get back into it. So that was Aries. Aries, I guess there's a lot of things about mourning, a lot of things about race going on in your life, music, positive affirmation. I did do this other reading recently, and it was saying that like Aries doesn't want to do positive affirmation. So you might have difficulty finding a song that is filled with positive affirmation. Um, and also, I guess like also for the African American community, it's hard to branch out into other genres of music because music, the music industry stems from segregation and racism, and at one point rock and roll was called race music because it was music made by black people, which then made it controversial just because of who was creating it. Um, and I'm sure like the lyrics and stuff too. I was watching something earlier today about the blues. Like yeah, like don't let music give you the blues. But that blues beat, that like da na 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 na, is like really easy to create your own song. So if you're stuck in traffic and you're like, "Dear God, I'm stuck in traffic. I have to pee. Please get me out of like please bring my exit closer to me rather than further away." You can sing a blues song that has positive affirmation to it. So it's like, I'm in some traffic. I need to get out. I believe in sudden miracles. I'm not gonna sing to you guys. I will one day. One day I'll record an album of positive affirming music. But so that's what you can do. And also just to talk about Aries, like Mariah Carey is an Aries, and she's the empress in my life. So her songs, a lot of her songs, they touch on God, they touch on having faith, like gonna make it happen. So Aries, you're gonna make it happen, Aries. You just need to sing a positive song, especially with January being like, if it isn't, it should be like National Seasonal Affective Disorder season or month. Like honestly, like November, December, January, February, March. If you have seasonal depression, it will probably be rocking extra hard this year. Okay, so that's enough about Aries and race and music and Elvis and b-holes and a-holes on Reddit. So that might be stuff that you're dealing with, Aries. Okay, so cool. Moving on to Taurus. So Taurus is the Four of Pentacles reverse. So we're seeing repeating numbers here. We got the Four of Swords for Aries, the Four of Pentacles for Taurus. And the Four of Pentacles reverse is about like being a hoarder. Um, So upright, it's like you're hoarding, but you're supposed to be hoarding, right? So you might have like a bunch of plastic forks and toilet paper and bottled water and like hurricane supplies. Like okay, a hurricane is coming to your town. You're like, what do I do? Let me do my tarot cards because that's what you do. Tarot before anything else. So you're like, oh, the hurricane's coming. What do I do? Four of Pentacles upright. Okay, so that means you go to the grocery store, you buy a bunch of eggs, you buy a bunch of toilet paper, you buy a bunch of water, get a backup generator, you hoard. You don't share nothing, you get a bunch of frozen dinners, you hoard. Um, Four of Pentacles reversed is about releasing your hoard. So Taurus, you might have been in some type of situation, maybe a hurricane, maybe a tornado, maybe a legitimate famine somewhere wherever you are. Uh, and you might have this huge hoard of money or of plates and dishes, things that you can't take with you into the afterlife, right? And as the Grim Reaper is approaching, you might have received like, some type of medical diagnosis that makes you discouraged about your future, which I think is like, the purpose of medical diagnosis. Uh, so you might be thinking like you have a lot of stuff that you want to give away. The things that you might want to give away, it might be like $40. It might be. I have recently become aware that pentacles also represent plates, like plates of food. Like fix them a plate. There's a lot of stuff about black culture in this. I mean, Tarot Bay is about black culture. Tarot Bay is black. Um, but there's a lot of stuff about like white culture, black culture. I mean, this video is about January, but I'm recording it in November. So there are a lot of things that make black Americans and white Americans bump heads that don't on the surface seem attached to race. Like if you're a Martian who just showed up on this planet, you're like what the hell, like why do black people only drink Pepsi and eat pecan like butter pecan ice cream and sweet potato pie. Like, how come they don't eat pumpkin pie, vanilla ice cream, and drink Coca Cola? And it's like, oh, Jim Crow, segregation. They weren't allowed to eat vanilla ice cream. They weren't allowed to purchase Coca Cola from stores. The Pepsi company was the first companies to hire and employ black people, to make soda. So there's like those things. And so maybe there's things that knowledge of those things that that you're ready to release, or philosophies that you're ready to release around those subject matters. Like, you might be a white woman dating a black man. Actually saw this in that show Blackish. And, he's like, fix me a plate. Or like, oh, did you see that Brenda didn't fix Marcus a plate? Like, the hell is her problem? You know what I mean? Like, she must not love her man. Or her man must not be taking care of her because of things that are translated within the culture. So to backtrack and to keep my ramblings in check. So Taurus, Four of Pentacles, there's a horde of things that you need to let go of, whether that's money, plates, dishes, recipes for dishes, because like I said, to me, pentacles represent money, time, and plates of food. So, if I'm doing a reading and it's like, oh, when am I going to get my next booking? Who's going to be my next client? And then I see the Four of Pentacles upright in the immediate future. I'm like, oh, okay, some like Earth sign, Virgo, Taurus at 4 o'clock is going to pay me $40 for something. Or, some Earth sign in their 40s is going to book a reading at 4 o'clock, or something of that nature. And I saw this because I was doing a reading on something going on in my own life, and I kept seeing something being an obstacle, and I was like, "What's the obstacle?" It's like a King of Pentacles reverse. I was like, like it's a bad time management, a bad time manager, um, whatever it is. But then Spirit came to me and was like, "Oh, it's like a Earth sign guy who sells plates." And not necessarily like a plate designer. Like I don't even know any, Williams Sonoma. What do you call it? Like Martha Stewart designer plates. Like it's not that. It's like somebody who sells like plates out of his car or out of a food truck or something like that. And that person is an obstacle for you. So, Taurus, you might have a hoard of wealth. You might have $400,000 or like enough money to invest in a business, and someone's trying to convince you to, some type of bad time manager is trying to convince you to start a food truck, and you're like, absolutely not. And they might be like the Grim Reaper, like, breathing over your shoulder, like, oh, you should start a food truck. You should start a food truck. Oh, this wouldn't be happen if you started that food truck. And you're like, all restaurants hemorrhage money, especially restaurants ran out of a vehicle. Like, you know what I mean? Or someone telling you should sell plates. So, you might have been like, so just like I said, to backtrack, you might have been hoarding food, ingredients, whatever, and now you have like this like pouring over a pantry, and you might be in need of money, and it's like, okay, well, how do you make money off of all this food and toilet paper and gallons of water that you bought, for this hurricane that didn't hit your part of town? Maybe you could start selling plates. Maybe you could start selling food, and not necessarily out of desperation, but maybe you have really good recipes that are worth sharing. Maybe you do a really good jambalaya, or I don't know, cornbread, or cake, or anything like that. And like the thing is too, like if something is convenient enough, uh, I don't have time to make Betty Crocker box cakes. I wish I did. I usually don't. So, you might be thinking like, oh, nobody wants my cakes. They're Betty Crocker or Pillsbury or whatever. I went crazy, during the pandemic, and now I got like 4 years worth of cake mix. Um, I'll never say no to an affordable, convenient, delivered, cake. So, just to be creative. I think I did a spread, and I swooped it up and I did another spread because there was this whole message about being creative. But it's not here anymore. So, be creative about like how you can not only make money but get rid of um resources that you may no longer need. Like, yeah, I don't know, like if it's like selling your recyclables, or like hand-me-down clothes or something like that, giving that away to somebody. Okay, so moving right along into the sign of Gemini. Hello, Gemini. We have the Seven of Cups. So the Seven of Cups has been around a lot. Recently, it's confusion, it's people like not knowing who you are, having a fear of obscurity or not being well known, and not accomplishing your career goals or your aesthetic goals, at by a certain time or a certain age. Which I know causes a lot of envy in people, especially in America, and especially like foreign born people, especially like in blended families. So, your family might have come to America from Uganda in the 80s, and your older siblings grew up with like thatch roofs and cloth diapers or no diapers, or you might have grown up in the Philippines, or your older siblings might have grown up in the Philippines, drinking ditch water out of recycled plastic jugs, and then you can't understand why they can't be happy or supportive of you as you grew up in fucking Los Angeles or New York City, or Dearborn, Michigan, with your happy, cheerful American friends that look like a Martin Luther King fever dream, while they suffered apartheid and segregation and humiliation and all types of terrible, horrible things. Like, even to the extent of like, okay, maybe your aunts and uncles grew up in the 1970s, and when they went to high school for freshman year, it was like school days, and they were like beaten with paddles and had ketchup and mustard and oats thrown at their face. And you went to high school, and hazing, you went to high school and you went to college and you joined a fraternity, and hazing was illegal, and you just were able to go to school and study and not have to be humiliated. So that's probably why they're not vibing with you. And so Gemini is the sign of like youth and youth culture. So even if you're not born in the month of June, and you're not a Gemini, and you're not born on the 3rd, and you're not skinny, you might just be young. And being young is very Gemini. All young, youthful people are somewhat Gemini, somewhat caught in a Gemini time period of their life. Um, so Gemini, why are people pretending like they don't know you? How come people don't want to help you? How come older generations are constantly trying to sabotage and hurt you? As we have the devil here in the center of this reading. It's because, they I don't think that diet soda, they grew up drinking diet soda. And then they found out that the diet soda is the reason why they have the bloating and the cellulite, even though cellulite's not, like, taking cellulite pills just to find out that cellulite's not real, and that all this stuff. And you grew up, drinking kombucha and being woke and aware of how the media is lying to you, and how marketers try to use race to divide people and destroy them, or how politicians use bigotry as like a ace in the pocket for when they're trying to win votes. And you're hip to all that, and your aunts and uncles weren't. They drank the Kool-Aid. They guzzled the Kool-Aid down. They seasoned it with all types of refined sugars and syrups, and just like mainlined it. And you're like, I'm not going to drink that Kool-Aid. I'm going to drink some water. And then several years later, that you're turning out to be the winner in the situation. So it's almost like, you get it. I don't need more analogies. You get it. You understand. But it's that, you know what I mean? It's like not knowing, like computers and things like that, and it confuses them, and they're confused. Your cousins, your classmates, all the Luddites in your family, they don't understand how you've achieved so much success, or how life has been so easy for you, simply because of your connection to technology. And you might have done something like you might have bought a really expensive computer at one point, like a $700 computer, and you only had $300 in your bank account. And you had to scrimp and save and slave, just to make up for that. It might have been a computer, it might have been a camera, it might have been a tea set, or whatever, a house, a dragon, all the stuff that's on the Seven of Cups, plastic surgery, something that was like really expensive, and you might have been suffering for a really long time because of that, like financially, because of that decision. But then, once your magic beanstalk grows, once you sold your cow, you bought the magic beans, your mom was like, "What the hell are you doing buying magic beans?" and like punches you in the face. But then when your beanstalk grows and they see the enormous beanstalk, interrupting the skyline, and they see you, the jack of all trades and master of none, climbing it and coming down with a goose that lays golden eggs, um, devil in the center of the reading, and having defeated this ogre or giant, as he comes crashing down, like you're waltzing down or sliding down effortlessly, easily down this gigantic beanstalk with a goose who lays golden eggs, lovingly nuzzled within your arms, and then the gigantic giant falling out of the clouds in the sky to his demise right behind you, within view. Then people are like, you know what? I think we shouldn't have been so mean to Gemini. And to keep this like Jack and the Beanstalk story going with so Cancer, the season of Cancer, the sign of Cancer, uh the July people, we got the Tower reverse. So this very much does feel like Jack and the Beanstalk. I don't know. Well, we have the descending energy being the Page of Swords reverse. So it's like, yeah, Gemini right now is Jack and the Beanstalk. They're dealing with like a super racist Aries and Taurus, or Aries and Taurus are calling them racist. Gemini's confused. They're like, I don't even know what race you are to be racist towards you. But what I do know is that despite everything that my mother has said and is telling me, I'm gonna go get this goose that lays the golden egg that's in this tower. And the Tower reverse for Cancer, hello Cancer, this is saying to me that like you're avoiding disaster. So you might have lost a job, you might have lost your house, a friendship, caught your boyfriend cheating with your best friend, but or your boyfriend cheating with your mother, or something just like really horrible and Jerry Springer and scandalous. And you're like, why would these people do this to me? But it reminds me, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this sitcom before, but Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, and I think like one of the first episodes, she like sleeps with her like new roommate's boyfriend, like on her birthday cake or something, like hard, like just something really horrible. And I mean, she's a bad person or whatever. It's a sitcom, it's a joke, but the rationale is like, well, that boyfriend wasn't a really good boyfriend because he was trying to sleep with me, right? So I'm kind of like saving you from a relationship where you're going to constantly be cheated on. It's better that like I expose this guy as a cheater in a way that's not just like hearsay. You know what I mean? So I was seeing this too a lot, like in The Sims and like some other stuff places where people are like, oh, like they want to get caught cheating. And for me, in my experience in relationships, I'm like, if I feel the need or the urge to cheat on somebody, I'm breaking up. I'm too Aries to sit around and play nice while I want to leave, you know? So I'd be like, I'm leaving, I'm finding somebody else, you know? Um, Whereas other people, I guess, there's other more complicated, nuanced things, like they might not be able to leave. They may not be able to show you like how abusive your husband or boyfriend is when you're not there, to like the point that they have to like show you in a more visceral, haunting, awful way. Cancer. Okay, and so this is a collective reading too. So you might have had an ex in the past who betrayed you in a very like awful way in some way, shape, or form. Whereas you were obviously able to avoid the disaster. Some guy ghosted you or whatever it is, stabbed you in the back, threw you out of his car. It's like driving with somebody down the highway, and they're like, "Get out of my car! I hate you." I found this text message. You're texting my mom, or you're texting my ex girlfriend or my ex best friend. And I hate you. Get out of my car, right? And then you're like, no, I'm not getting out of the car, whatever. You get out of the car, and then you see before they hit their exit, they get like hit by a 16 wheeler or their car flips over or something really bad happens to them. And it's like you were avoiding that disaster because of that catastrophe. You know, um, you beg your friend to pull over the car because you really have to pee. Just to see like three, when you pull over and you see like three cars drag racing, like zooming past you, and it's like, well, we really needed to get off the street. So like your intuition, Cancer, will probably speak to you in different ways. It might speak to you through your bladder. It might speak to you through television. You might be like going to the hospital, getting these tests, being like, do I have diabetes? Like I have to pee all the time, and then and then even scarier than a horrible diagnosis like diabetes or some illness. They're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like that, like to go to the hospital and to get like, to be diagnosed with cancer or HIV or AIDS or something, it's pretty frightening. It's like a bad day. But there's medicine, there's treatments and things like that. I think the tower, going to the hospital and getting the tower is like being sick or not feeling well. Oh, there's like actually an episode of Golden Girls about this. Being sick or being unwell or feeling unwell or irregular, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you, ma'am. Other than that, you might be a little bit fucking batshit crazy." It'll feel like the Twilight Zone, like Willoughby or something, Willoughby or some shit. So you might be going through something like that. And then okay, so cool. That's Cancer, avoiding disaster, Jack and the Beanstalk. You might feel like there's something really like you might be thinking that you have like some life-ending disease, and you just to find out that it's psychosomatic or it's your intuition trying to protect you. All right, so Leo, hello Leo, welcome to the January tarot forecast. We have the Queen of Cups here. So this is saying to me that a lot of the obstacles that you've been facing throughout your entire life, and more so through January, has been coming from your mother, like your direct blood mother. And for a Leo, your direct blood mother might be a very difficult subject matter because you might have gone through um, the foster care system at some point in your life, as Aquarius is, and Leos have usually estrangement from either one parent or both parents. Um, so you might have a lot of love for your birth mom, but she, just like the Seven of Cups over here, may be a stranger. Probably doesn't even remember you, or um, is like, oh, which child is this? And this could be your mother. This could also be like your grandmother. because as grandmothers might have like 20 grandchildren, from different marriages and different sides of the family and play cousins and whatever, what have you. So that's your difficulty right now. It's like your attachment to your mother, specifically like your birth mother, and like sort of coming to the conclusion that you're not Hercules. You might be more like the Nemean lion, which obviously lived a life of exaltation. But you might have felt like Hercules throughout your whole life, like Juno or Hera, like your stepmother, or your fake mother or your adopted mother is the obstacle and the detriment to your existence and the bane of your existence or whatever it is. But it's actually not Hera. You're not Hercules. It's not your stepmother that's causing you strife and pain. It's actually your birth mother, your grandmother, people who are actually related to you. And this dials back to what I was saying about Gemini, where it's like people are looking at you with this evil eye and praying to the devil for your destruction because of the fact that you grew up with technology. There's nothing you can do. They had to sit through infomercials, and you had TiVo. You know what I mean? Which I love commercials. I love commercials. I think they actually break. I think commercials are actually very healthy in television, especially as we're talking about how media helps you manifest. Because you can like Netflix, dude. Like there's times back in 2010, I would be watching, Weeds or Orange is the New Black or whatever Netflix, whatever, and it would be like a whole week would go or hours would go by, and I would have no sense of time because there was no commercials breaking up the show. You're not taking bathroom breaks, probably damaging your, probably your bladder is damaged right now or whatever's going on. Um, and it breaks up the severity of the show because you'll get completely, you read a book or watch a television show, like you'll get sucked in. That's part of the movie magic. But when you have a commercial breaking it up every 15 minutes, it brings you back into reality. You're like, oh, Mighty Mendit. Okay, let me like go check my laundry. Let me go throw a couple dishes in the dishwasher until Billy Mays shuts up, and then I'll go back to watching you know Frasier, and and like will he ever end up with Roz? Opposed to watching Orange is the New Black and being like, I'm in women jail. Orange is the New Black. I'm Piper. Like it'll, and especially everybody doing ketamine nowadays, like it'll totally mess your mind up. And I don't know anything about ketamine. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a drug addict. I've never taken it. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what color it is. But from the little commercials and stuff that I see, and from the spiritual downloads that I've been receiving about just like drugs in general, is that ketamine puts you in this like root chakra focused energy where everything you look at, you're like, I am this, I'm that. So it's like drug induced affirmation. So when you watch television, you're like, I'm Kylo Ren because you're watching him. You're like, it's like your caveman archaic brain still can't perceive when they're looking at the black screen or black mirror television screen, computer screen, that they're not looking in a mirror or at their own reflection. Your soul, your spirit team, they think that you're sitting around looking at your reflection all day in vanity. And there are people who it's like will watch like that Dwayne Rock Johnson show on Hulu because they feel like that's who they want to be. That's their like their avatar. Like they are the Rock. Um, so if you have a show on Tubi or on YouTube and it's not really like getting the traction and attention that you want, it's because people may not be using your show for manifestation. Like when I was a little kid, there was this show. I love cartoons, obviously. I love cartoons. I love sitcoms. Like I love them. Like I love the history, the lore, everything. But there was a show called Pelswick, and it was one of the first shows about someone who's like differently abled. And I thought that was amazing because it's like, Charlie Brown. You have a show about a boy. You have a show about you got Pepper Ann. You got a show about a girl. You got like the Boondocks and other Proud Families. You got shows about black people. You got whatever other shows, And then so it's like, okay, well now this is the show, this is the Capricorn show. This is the show about someone who's differently abled. But from like toxic positivity or whatever manifestation, I don't think that's something that people like to focus on because that's like one of their greatest fears, you know? So that might also be why, like, when you go on TikTok and how there's like a racist algorithm on TikTok where it's like black creators aren't pushed to the forefront because, maybe their content is seen as controversial because they're black people. And a lot of what it is to be black and a lot of other cultures is seen as like being illegal, you know what I mean? Or a threat to their culture because hip hop is a threat to whoever's culture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like I said, like if Martians came here tomorrow, I think our biggest weapon would be like Jay-Z and 50 Cent, and they would be crushed. They'd be like, I gotta sell my spaceship for a gold chain because I gotta look like 50 Cent. And can anybody get me any Calvin Klein boxers? The Plutonians, their whole planet would just become, a cesspool of destruction because they would want to be gangster rappers. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's like black people are just like, people want to steal their culture. Their culture is so influential. Their food is so tasty that, especially from a Chinese company like that's trying to wage a land war, a culture war, a resource war, they're like, we don't want any of this competition at all. Um, so just be aware. I do see the Ten of Swords here, which just talked to me about TikTok. And then moving into the sign of Virgo, hello Virgo, we have the Nine of Pentacles reverse, which the Nine of Pentacles, I'm always like, oh, it's a drag queen. It's, it's a real housewife character. It's a wrestler. It's a superhero. It's like all those types of things. And, like the Nine of Pentacles also has to do with like skin color, um, like how they would say back in the day, like being highborn. It's like a privileged woman. It's a woman who lives a life of privilege. So, like I said, like January, young people out here. So not just Gemini, but I feel like everybody receiving this reading. The reason why people are giving you the evil eye, why they're so jealous, why they're being ogres, why they are standing in your way, why they're being obstacles, why they're upsetting you, why they're triggering your intuition to go off like ringing bells, is because, like I said, you may not feel this way, but you lived a life of privilege. They had to shop at Kmart. Kmart doesn't even exist anymore. Like, oh, they had to when they were 22, they were shopping at Kmart. When you were 22, you were shopping at ASOS, and it was like a bunch of stuff your size delivered to your house, affordable, um, like two of each outfit if you wanted. Whereas, like, back in the day, your Aunt Susan lost her eye fighting someone at a Target for, a Tickle Me Elmo in 1992 and still has the scars and still talks about it. And you're like, oh, when my baby was born, I had a cesarean section, and uh, you know, he didn't even want toys, or like I don't know, like it's just like you appear to have lived a life of more privilege than other people, and maybe that comes through social media and iPhones and um, I want to say pontification, but I know that the word is actually like exaggeration or inflation of status and well-being to the point that people like want to self-harm. So it's like, if you look at somebody like Donald Trump, he's had some bankruptcies and backlashes and things like that. But like if you knew every time he shat his pants, you'd be like, "Oh, poor guy." Like, like if you knew every time that Martha Stewart pissed herself a little bit when she was laughing, you'd be like, "Oh, she's not perfect." And then actually one of the things that I've really enjoyed talking about Real Housewives is seeing Paris Hilton's mother address Paris Hilton's mental health issues, where it's like, Paris, you act like a baby and a child, like you need to stop doing that. Like I know that we're both dumb blondes, but like, we both need to grow up a little bit. And Paris Hilton actually, some in my past couple of my past readings about the 2025 overview for I think each individual signs, the Six of Cups reverse kept coming up where it's like get rid of old stuff, get rid of old nostalgia. Um, but to talk about that is like, so dial back to Taurus, and I'm talking about you have a hoard of something. So you might have like a hoard of CDs. The pentacles that I'm seeing as dishes or plates might actually be like CDs or DVDs. And you're like, man, like my dad or my sister, she left me all these CDs and DVDs. They're just collecting dust. Should I throw them away? I think that for whatever, or records, I think that for whatever reason, you should hold on to them, or maybe start a CD seller, like a little store that sells them, or just start playing them and enjoying them, because maybe they're just like sitting there collecting dust. And CDs, I think, are very important. I think like listening to full albums is very important. I'm very impatient, even though I'm making these 6 hour long tarot videos. I think that listening to CDs are very important because you really get to understand who the artist is. And as I started this reading talking about like Elvis Presley and Taylor Swift, I'm actually more so reminded in this Virgo positioning of this Nine of Pentacles reverse about like Will I Am, and how Will I Am tried to navigate the system being like a dark skinned man, being like, okay, I'm dark skinned, but I got this like light skinned Latin guy who kind of looks Asian, and then I got a dark skinned Filipino guy, and then we got this like Greek woman who's named after Fergie. So like if you like, especially in the 2006, like if you weren't Shakira, or if you weren't like a white woman, like nobody was really trying to search for your music. But if you are a backpacking woke rap group like The Locks, or any rapper that's ever performed on the Dave Chappelle show, you are going to go out, like people hated that stuff. Even my own mother used to say stuff to me like, "Oh, that's too black," or people aren't into that. People aren't into black people having power or self-esteem or owner or property, or ownership of their culture. So back off from that type of stuff. But Will I Am really, I feel like, obviously was like, okay, I'm not going to be pushed onto the back burner because I make backpacking music. um, I am going to survive. I'm going to use Taboo and Fergie's whiteness to get us as far as long as we can. We're going to start making EDM. We are not going to be pushed aside. And I think that's something that people need to talk about, how he navigated Bush era, the Swan, Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, America, to stand out like when Barack Obama was inaugurated as like a political pundit, as a cultural touchstone. A lot of props to will.i.am, I guess. And then so listening to full album, so the Elefunk CD. So I think that's like one of the first Black Eyed Peas albums to actually include Fergie. There's like a bonus track at the end of it called Third Eye, which sort of elaborates on a lot of the political things that they were talking about in the mega smash hit that features Justin Timberlake, Where Is the Love? Which I used to think that the Justin Timberlake part was Fergie, and then I was like, oh, that's a man singing that. Um, so maybe there are some albums or some CDs. I don't know. Maybe you go listen to an old Bad Boy album and P Diddy's admitting to all the crazy stuff that he did. You know, um, maybe there is an artist that maybe you're racist or something, and there's an artist that you like, and in one of the extended tracks, he talks about how he's white, but he's from Africa or something. You know what I mean? Or like, uh, like what's his name? Zach from Saved by the Bell is actually Filipino. So you might have felt like, you can't accomplish anything because of where you come from, and who your family are and what they've been through, or it's not polite to accomplish anything because of them. And then it's like, no, like there's people from your background, from your racial mix, who accomplish great things. I don't know if Zach from Saved by the Bell has actually accomplished other than being like a '90s heartthrob, but that's an accomplishment. We'll put that on the fridge, right? And okay, this has been like a really powerful reading. So that's what's going on with Virgo. Like, there's a lot of like race things going on. I mean, like, Donald Trump did just get elected, so maybe that has a lot to do. There's a lot of race things going on. A lot of things with race, music, housing, clothes, how you dress. Like, what is it to dress this way or that way? And I guess like when you're living in if you got a hijab on, or you got a MAGA cap on, there's a lot of like fashion that has been sort of like weaponized right now. Baggy pants, your hat facing forward versus reversed, whatever your clothes, baggy clothes, your clothes fitting, being fitted or not fitted, is going to be very contentious in January, or have a lot of people are going to be focusing that in contention. People are going to be very focused on that in January. Uh, yeah, every day in January, a lot of Virgos will be. And then moving right along, so welcome Libra. Hello. Welcome to the January Tarot forecast. And we have the Wheel of Fortune reversed. So Libra, Wheel of Fortune reversed, you might have gotten like a natal chart reading. I just did a Pisces reading where the Wheel of Fortune was upright in the Libra position, seventh house. So Libra, you might have gotten like a natal chart reading done by somebody, and you most likely didn't have the correct birth information, and it is somewhat like misguiding you or making you feel misguided, especially when it comes to compatibility and love. So, you might get one natal chart reading done, and it's like, you got a rising Gemini, and that makes you more compatible with person X. And, you get another natal chart reading, and they're like, oh, you actually have a rising Taurus, and that actually makes you more compatible with person Z. So the reason why, or one of the reasons why I kind of go back and forth, I focus more on tarot than astrology, is that having access to your birth information is actually an extreme uh, place of privilege, and having accuracy around your birth information is an extreme point of privilege. Because if you are in a place that, if you're doing a home birth, or if you're in a place where hospitals aren't readily available, or which to people in the modern world, like, where is that at, these things would be more difficult. Or if you're from the foster care system, like, your information, your documentation might have been lost or just fabricated to make things more easier, which is a very Libra concept. Like, let's forge some legal documents to make our lives easier. And that might have happened to you. You might not be aware that that happened to you. Your birth, you might have been switched at the hospital. You might have been switched at the mall. Like, you never know. You know what I mean? So I think that tarot is a more accurate tool than natal chart readings, just because whose chart is that? You know what I mean? Were you really born at that time? And a lot of times too, like government documents, like times of death or times of birth or just time in general, if it is an angel number, they'll most likely change it because it'll seem fake. If it's like, oh, she was born, the seventh month on the seventh day at 777. There's no time set. Well, you know what I mean. Like on the fifth day of the fifth month at 555. And she's the fifth daughter of her grandmother's fifth daughter, and you may never know those things because of inaccurate documentation regarding your birth chart and your natal chart. The Wheel of Fortune also talks to me about like dishwashers, dryers, fans, space heaters, anything that goes like, so there could be something in your car that it's broken. Whatever, there's some wheel in your house. The wheel in the house, the wheel in the bus is broken and needs to be replaced. And also, it also talks about like having a spare tire, like belly fat. As Libras are the scales, and they do deal with weight issues and a lot of negativity around their weight. So you could have like a spare tire. You might have recently gotten rid of your spare tire, or might be working on it. This perhaps dials back to all this like hateration on Gemini. You might be really hateful and spiteful towards a Gemini or Sagittarius right now because, when you were 22, you never had Chinese food before, and you already had bags under your eyes and a spare tire, and what do they call those things? Like uh, airbags, saddlebags, like under your arms or something, and you were 25 or whatever it was, or 10. 10 years old. These were already things that were plaguing you. And you see people younger, people who are 35, with no stretch marks and no devil marks, you know what I mean? Like no bags on their eyes from like staying up all night doing cocaine. And it might make you furious, Libra. So just like be aware of that. And like, you might be a person who's thinking like, oh, like I'm 38, but I could definitely date a 25-year-old. you would literally hear their accent and the way that they pronounce words and just the education that they've had because of technology, where it's like, they're like, oh yeah, like I've seen all 70 episodes of Star Wars and the cartoons and this and that, and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I've only seen the first six, but I have Star Wars posters everywhere, and I think of myself as a huge Star Wars fan. Um, like for me, myself, I was humbled by YouTube because if somebody on the street would have asked me like, "Oh, like how much do you know about Pokemon?" I'd be like, "I am a Pokemon master. I know everything. I am so smart. Get away from me," you know? And there was this guy making these Pokemon shorts, being like, kind of like, "Who's this Pokemon?" And I was like 100% stumped. I didn't know what generation. I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. This is so confusing. Please go away from like, scroll next video, making me feel dumb about Pokemon. So there's something like that going on, Libra. Like you need to grow up and maybe even have like your hobbies or your interests grow up as well, which I know can be difficult because it's like, especially as a man, it's like, so I'm not supposed to watch chibi cartoons and anime or Looney Tunes, but I am supposed to watch like Law and Order and football, and it's kind of, but I mean, there's other things like there's astrology videos and tarot videos and, psychic predictions and conspiracy theories videos and other things that are more adult that you can get into and have like huge knowledge about. Or your job or your career. Like, if you work at a coffee shop or an ice cream store or a clothing store, you can just become very knowledgeable on the products that you're selling instead of watching, Grand Log until 2 a.m. because that's what your grandchildren used to do that you were jealous of. So you can like get up to date on anime or what anime is and be cool with the kids. Because whatever. And okay, so that's what Libra's going through. And then as we're moving right along to Scorpio, we have the Magician here. So Scorpio in January 2025 is like magic is alive. So they might have been like afraid to do magic or afraid of people doing magic on them or manifestation, but their faith or their power has been restored after a very long time of like darkness. So if you have been trying to hex a Scorpio in January, um, I wouldn't. And then moving into the sign of Sagittarius, we have the Eight of Pentacles reverse. So this Scorpio, they're doing their magic, and it's going to like very heavily impact Libra and Sagittarius, where it is going to make Sagittarius want to give up on what they've been working on. So, like I was saying about Pokemon and like how I thought I was Mr. Pokemon and I knew everything. Um, it's something like that. It's like coming to you thinking that you're like this huge wealth of knowledge, and coming to the realization that you don't know anything or you don't know that much. Like you might have studied something in college, like architecture or um, graphic design or something that's just like automatically archaic because of Canva or or something like that. But also I see here, so just like I was using this analogy of avoiding catastrophe for Cancer, like you and your boyfriend are driving down the highway and you get into an argument, you get out the car and you watch your, I guess like now ex-boyfriend get into a car accident. It's almost like for Sagittarius, you wanted to finish college in a traditional way, as a lot of people do, and it's very important to Sagittarius. But because you dropped out, or because you took an alternative or different method around your education or around therapy sessions you might have been receiving, because you took this unique path, you are also avoiding disaster. So um, Gemini or Cancer might have gone through like a very expensive education, might have had like a very expensive education, whereas they didn't really have to spend that much money. Like they might have gotten scholarships or whatever it was. Sagittarius, it's like you're better off using your money investing in yourself or investing in a business or just like creating a really snazzy CV or resume instead of going back into school and getting yourself further into debt. And if you're a young Sagittarius who's looking at doing your undergrad and you may not be able to afford it or thinking about dropping out, it is my philosophy that like 4-year programs where you're like camping out in a dorm, they're taking you away from your parents and your resources and things like that. They're just kind of like setting you up for trauma and to be like taken advantage of for sexual assault, racial trauma, racial, religious trauma, where it's like, you may not have a space to, do your prayers 5 times a day. You may not have a space to set up your Taoist altar because it scares your Christian roommates or something, or vice versa. You're not may not be able to put up your cross and pictures of Jesus because it scares your like Jewish roommates because of wherever you are. Or they think that or what is it called? Like, oh, this is December, like Christmas, like a Christmas tree. You might be trying to erect like a Christmas tree or a menorah or something in your dormitory at GW, and all the Jewish kids like hate it or something, or vice versa. Or at Catholic University, you might be trying to celebrate diversity and put up a menorah for Kwanzaa, and they're like, "Oh, what is this Jewish stuff doing here?" Also, I saw this on TikTok, but like you could have a lot of people like confusing. It's the same energy. It was like people confusing the Greek flag as the Israeli flag, and then choosing violence to settle that situation. Alrighty, so now that this video is officially 8 hours long or 6 hours, you will not be receiving a paycheck after this. Even though you probably feel like you deserve it because it's been a long time listening, but thank you for listening. Uh, we have the Eight of Wands upright, and this is the energy representing Capricorn. So, Capricorn, I think that Mercury goes into retrograde. I saw in a previous reading in August, and I think it's like fire sign leaning into earth sign, or water. I think it's water sign leaning into earth sign. So it's like in between Cancer and Leo, and then in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, and then in between Pisces and Aries. I believe I can double check that, or you should double check that. Double check that, and then but for whatever reason, I see that you will kind of be able to um, stand superior or to defeat the limitations that Saturn and Mercury retrograde bring to you. So Saturn and Pisces might be very difficult for you as well. Whereas like you might be feeling like a jail warden for a Pisces, as you might be feeling like this Pisces needs to be punished or whatever the situation may be. This situation might be going in between you and a Sagittarius as well. You could feel like the Capricorn or Sagittarian energies, your competitive nature, might be a limitation for you. But I see that what won't be a limitation for you is um, playing Excite Bike, which I think is like an Atari or NES game, riding your motorcycle, sending out messages and emails. There's like this notion that like, sending out one email a day is not work. It might feel socially draining or exhausting, but literally drink a Red Bull and get over it, because there's people who dig ditches for a living, and that's every email that you send out is stopping you from being a part of that part of society. Capricorn. And it's like don't be also the eight of wands is like don't be afraid of like direct message marketing if it comes to your career or your business. Um, I would say that the five of pentacles probably talks more about cold calling, but this is definitely like direct message marketing campaign, email marketing campaign. If you need help, like reaching out to everybody in your contact list. But this is also because it's the eight of wands, so it's like that, but then also it's like good news. So as I'm seeing here with in December with the Eight of Pentacles, for Sagittarius guys, that around the holidays you might feel like dropping out of school, you might feel like giving up on things, ditching your old body of work, like just throwing out your whole portfolio, like going from being a painter to a photographer and then throwing away all your paintings, or vice versa. Or whatever your artisan is, like whatever your craft is with the Eight of Pentacles. The recordings, it could be your YouTube videos that you might be making YouTube videos, recording them. You might have spent a lot of time with the Sagittarius recording some like intimate videos, and you're like, I don't want to be on OnlyFans. I just got a new job. I'm kind of like the whole scarcity and fear thing that I was going through back in May is sort of over. And you might just like get rid of them. And then because I also see that for Aquarius, so hello Aquarius, and your vibration, or within your vibration, within your 11th house, within for the sign of Aquarius, we have the star card here. And so this talks about like 15 minutes of fame. So you might be like a rock star at your new job. Your friends, even your friends might have been like trying to catalog, like you might be so sexy, like your friends might have been trying to like catalog your nudes or something, or trying to scam them out of you because they're just like, very curious. But I see that showering will be very helpful, Aquarius. I know that you might be on some like funky uh, routine where you may not be showering regularly, which I guess is okay, but you need to smell good. It helps your powers of attraction. And then finally for so that's the thing too. So these other messages for these other signs might be like a lot longer, but this is an all sign sort of like collective reading where me myself, when I look at YouTube videos on readings, I like to look at specifically my sun sign because otherwise I just don't feel like it resonates in the way that it needs to. But then also I'm trying to somewhat stray away from astrology. So this is sort of me getting my listeners ready for when I just talk about what the cards have to say outside of astrology. But then it's like, if none of this is resonating with you yet, because, it's a future message, when you get to your sign, things should ring a little bit more clearly. But these themes of like, Donald Trump and racism and music genres and clothing, it's like that's it. You know what I mean? Like if there was a clickbait title for this video, it would be like music is racist, So just be aware of that, and I don't know, your Aquarian friend or Aquarius, you and your friends might make some positive, happy, intuitively affirmed songs that don't destroy the ego or make people envious. And then so Pisces, so the sign of Pisces in January 2025, I'm seeing the Five of Swords reversed. So it's like you're doing a lot to dispel these evil curses that people are placing on everybody through like them lying through deception. So if you have been feeling very limited or stressed out by um, Saturn being in Pisces, I think Saturn leaves Pisces in May 2025, I want to say. I not double check that. And so you might even been convicted or like stamped guilty for whatever the hell this might be. But I see that you will be vindicated. So the Five of Swords upright is like, winning by deception, being deceived, being around tricky, deceptive people, um, vicious rumors. So with the Five of Swords reversed in the sign of Pisces, like secretly someone, some Libra, or some gang of people have been going around spreading like false, vicious rumors about you, and you're going to be vindicated in the month of January. You may not even be aware of these rumors. You may not even be aware of the vindication when it happens and the group of people that it happens with because you may no longer speak to them because they're a bunch of gullible apes who are willing to believe that you are evil in the first place. Um, so that's that. But also the Five of Swords talks about like it's like ending people who are trying to win by deception. So like my thing on YouTube is that, I'll get a video and it'll get 2 likes. It's a short too, so it'll get like 2 likes and 0 views. So I'm like, these likes are most likely bogus. These views are most likely bogus. I think it's, especially, I think the numbers on TikTok are 100% bogus. I think they're trying to give you enough views so that you are encouraged to continue to use the app, but uh, few or little views so that you're also encouraged to pay for exposure and they can actually get money out of you, which I don't think is necessarily 100% wrong, but it's like if you're jealous or envious of somebody because of their YouTube following or their Instagram followers or their TikTok followers or engagement or whatever it is, just know that they're probably paying for it. Um, which is okay. So it's like, they don't have the goose that laid the golden egg. They don't have the singing harp or whatever it is in Jack and the Beanstalk that Gemini apparently has, or that you have, or that you are. They're not the goose that lays the golden egg that you are. They're not the singing harp that you are. And I see that we are all heading towards the Nine of Cups. So after you listen to this video, you might have to use the bathroom really bad, um, or you might go eat something very nice, or both. So it has been several hours of me talking about astrology, and I thank you so much for listening. And I hopefully will see you in my next video. If you would like to book your own reading, you can do so on my website. It's super simple. I offer readings as phone calls, text messages, or videos like this. So, if you have a long commute to work, let's say it's almost 2 hours, so a 2 hour commute to work, and you need something to listen to that isn't, um, you know, twinks on the radio making you feel bad about your age because you were in love with a guy who looked like Troye Sivan when you were, 28, but because of don't ask, don't tell, or, cultural whatever, you never explored that relationship and now you feel like he's the one that got away. Um, you know, um, Listen to this instead. Listen to this, book a reading, learn how to feel better about yourself and like where you've been and where you're going, because I think also the 8 of Pentacles with Sagittarius talks about like forgetting about your resume, forgetting about all the times you went out to nightclubs and you got numbers, and you started doing a little dance and then 7 other people started doing it with you, or the time you saw Suge Knight, or the time you met Shaquille O'Neal, and it was synchronistic and beautiful and amazing, and it was like, oh, like celebrity. Because also a lot of people drink, and so you forget like, oh yeah, I used to have that job in that office, or I used to work with these people and those people. Which I think that remembering all the dragons you've slayed and all the demons and ogres that you have laid to waste, um, will make you feel better about where you are in life. You're like, I might have all these scars and stretch marks and agoraphobia, and I might be struggling with my weight or be overweight or whatever it is, but it's like, it's because I fought demons. You know what I mean? I went out and slayed a dragon, and slayed an ogre, and fought a giant, and then I had to go hide, go hide and eat bad food for a little while. So even if other people, or if like young people don't appreciate the way that your body looks, or the way that your face looks because of the scars that you've endured for the war that is our existence, the war that is existence itself, which is laid out in the Mahabharata, that life is war. um, that's fine, because you're supposed to appreciate your battle scars and wounds, and the person who truly loves you will appreciate them as well. Okay, so I know I already said bye, but bye again. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in my next video. Like and subscribe, please. Thank you.